You will never get better at chess unless you're gonna learn and master this key chess principle. The good news is, once you do master it, only the sky is the limit. In this video, I'm gonna share with you what the principle is, how it actually works, and how exactly you should apply it into your games to crush your chess opponents. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. I am International Master Yevhenii Yelisieiev, and let's get started. It all starts with this position. I'm playing as white, I have a little bit of the initiative. I'm playing against a roughly 2000 opponent, and here he has an extra pawn, and so far he has made all of the moves instantly. So I know he's still in his preparation. I am not. But I'm thinking here I have a few promising choices. So normally, how do you decide what is the best move, what is the continuation you should go for? Well, you have a 3-steps formula that you should follow. First, you consider all of the promising opportunities. Here I discovered that 2 promising choices I absolutely have to consider are knight takes c6, pawn takes, and then I take this pawn back, or I first play bishop to b5, I pin the knight, I attack it even more, and then I win the pawn back. The second step is to analyze and compare those promising choices. In my case, it's just 2 options, sometimes it can be more than that. And finally, the third step is to choose the best continuation and to go for it. Now, of course, the most difficult part of this entire process is the second step, where you analyze the options and you choose the best. How do you do that? This is the topic of today's video, and I have a recipe for you how you can simplify this process, how you can actually choose the best option much more often, and of course, that's gonna bring you to much better results in chess. It's all about the comparison. Basically, chess is a game of comparison where you constantly have different options and your main task is to compare those and find the best. This is what I have learned from one of the best chess players and chess coaches in the entire world, Boris Gelfand, in his training camp. So he's saying it's all about the comparison. You are calculating those variations and you are coming to some kind of position. And then your task is to compare the resulting position from one variation with the resulting position of another variation and try to understand which one is better and then go for this one. So going back to this position, I have knight takes c6 and bishop to b5. Let's start with bishop b5. I discovered that of course, my opponent wants to make castles here. This is what he's going for, and then I can get this pawn back. Otherwise, I'm not achieving anything at all. Takes, I take with the bishop, and then, yes, I'm attacking this rook, but he has a relatively simple yet very powerful move, bishop to d7, which is pinning my bishop over here, so I cannot take the rook there. So basically, the bishops are going off the board. Let's say I play, I don't know, whatever, rook d1, he can take it, queen takes, and then we have this position where I'm not sure I really have any significant challenges for my opponent. He can just play rook to b8, the rook is active, I have difficulties with developing my bishop, and he can slowly but surely finish his development. Doesn't really have any significant weaknesses, whereas I do have this isolated pawn. Yes, I can move it forward and exchange it, but then it's really difficult for me to win the game, which is of course my goal. The second option, which I eventually went for, is just knight takes c6 directly. Why is it better? I decided it's a better option and eventually it came out to be true. It's actually still a theoretical position, of course. It would be better if I knew that, but not only you know the long theoretical lines, even if you are 2400 rated player, it's just impossible to remember everything, and I'm definitely not like the best one to memorize everything. And I'm always saying you don't need to memorize the opening lines, you rather need to understand the ideas, because every time your opponent makes something different, if you're just memorizing, you're just out of book and you don't know what to do. But if you truly understand the ideas, then you still can think of a way to implement it and go on. So here, takes, I took it with the queen, I'm given a check, bishop d7, because I'm also attacking the rook, he must play it, and then queen goes back to f3. So we have roughly the same position as in the previous variation. But here we still have those bishops on the board. And this is a huge difference because I thought my bishop is better, and also I have some kind of space advantage on the board. So with less space for my opponent, it's more difficult to develop all of his pieces, to find good places, good squares for all of his pieces. So how do you make the right decision if you have several promising options? Well, you choose the one where it's more inconvenient for your opponent to play, the one where you can ask more questions, the one where you can create more challenges in front of your opponent, so it's more difficult for him to handle the situation. Remember, your main task in chess is to make your opponent's life as miserable as possible. So having that in mind, you choose that option. First, what is easier for you to play, and second, what is more difficult for your opponent to play. And the second one is more important because sometimes, yes, it's easier for you to play a certain position, but so it is for your opponent. So you shouldn't really avoid complicating things if you think that it's going to be even more difficult for your opponent. For example, here, after rook to b8, I played this move d5. And I'm asking a question like, what do you do with it? How you're gonna handle this challenge? Because I just want to exchange that pawn and you're gonna be in trouble. At least that's what I thought, because you're gonna have that isolated pawn, which is a weak one. I'm gonna get rid of my isolated pawn, so my pawn structure overall would be much better. So I was expecting my opponent to either take the pawn on d5 or play the move e5. And that's a very important concept to understand. It's about these opportunities. Because when your opponent has a few different options to choose from, the chance that he's gonna make a mistake, we're all human beings, we all make mistakes, this chance is going to be higher. And that's exactly what you need to create this abundance of opportunities for him. Because let's imagine he has just one choice, then the chance that he's gonna make a mistake, if he is not suddenly going crazy or something, is very, very low. So that's the situation you want to avoid. You rather have to create the situation where he can either take or go forward, and he needs to think about, spend some time, and potentially make a mistake. In this case, my opponent made absolutely something crazy from my perspective. He played the move castles. But I was so surprised. Like in the beginning, I thought this is just such a bad move. I mean, you cannot do that. Now I can just take it. You're gonna have that isolated pawn. Your entire pawn structure is so crippled. You just don't understand chess at all. But when I went home and checked the evaluation with the engine, I saw that this is actually an excellent move according to the engine. It's so unbelievable. Yes, when I started to analyze it further during the game, I noticed that, okay, actually it's not that stupid. Actually, my opponent has a point, because once I exchanged those pawns, which I of course did here with the pawn, he took it back. Now suddenly he gets a lot of activity. I mean, this rook is going to be opened. He has a few bishops here looking in the direction of the king side, and he's going to create some threats for my king. So it's not that funny. But I have also created some imbalance in the position. It's not symmetrical at all. We both have some targets, some weaknesses. And so in such a situation, it's much simpler for you to outplay your opponent. To truly understand how you should use this principle in your own games, the next example is absolutely perfect. Fast forward a few moves, we have this position where I have basically developed almost all of my pieces. I'm now playing rook a to e1, just completing my development. Yes, this rook on f1 is not that active, but it's a very important defender. Look at this guy on f2, and those pieces that black has along the f file. If the knight jumps somewhere, then f2 would be hanging. So without this rook, I would have a serious problem. Also, this bishop might come to c5, adding yet another attacker, so the rook is necessary. Otherwise, all of the pieces are active, and I'm creating a threat of winning the pawn on e6. Therefore, instead of trying to stay passive, which is, by the way, also a good tip of advice for you, if you have a choice between staying passive, let's say playing rook to e8 here and being defensive, my opponent goes e5, he's very active, he's creating a counter threat. Actually, it's an amazing move because his queen is under attack here, the bishop can just take it, but my queen is also under attack on h3. Now, I have a choice here, whether I exchange the queens or I leave the queens on the board, for example, play the move queen to h4 and try to continue my attack like that. How do you take the right decision here? It's such an essential topic of exchanging the pieces on the chessboard, especially the queens, so it's going to be so instructive for you. Take a moment here, pause the video for a second and try to understand what would you play as white. Alright, I hope you have taken your time. It's so much more useful when you actually invest yourself into the position and think about it before I reveal the answer to you. So the right move, the best move, and thank God I have found it, in this position is bishop takes f7 and actually exchanging those queens. Why is it the case? So I initially wanted to leave the queens on the board. I wanted to play something like queen h4 and try to checkmate my opponent, play bishop to d3, exchange that knight, jump with my knight forwards, use all of my pieces just to get to his king. But I'm not the only one who wants to attack here. I discovered that actually my opponent has a lot of active ideas here. Like if I play queen to h4, he can go queen to g6, putting pressure on my pieces, then this bishop comes to c6, then he attacks my bishop on g5 there, and it's not really that convenient. This e pawn might go forward, and I felt that it actually might be dangerous for me. And for my opponent, it's also a little bit simpler because the variations are really straightforward here. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the main point is here it's really not that difficult for my opponent to figure out a move. He either needs to defend, like defend the h7 pawn or something, or just create a threat, push the pawn, and get rid of my pieces, get it back. So it's going to be simpler for him to play here. Conversely, if I exchange the queens, then I just go back here, and I thought nothing has changed in the position. The queens are off the board, but otherwise, the pawn structure is exactly the same, and my opponent still has a lot of difficulties with it to play. Yes, objectively it's not such a big advantage, but practically it's much more convenient for white to play. I have absolutely zero risk. Now that there are no checkmating attacks possible, my queen is not in trouble or something, I just have those targets to attack. And indeed, that's exactly what happened in this game, and I want you to understand this concept and use it in your games. So you need to make it less comfortable for your opponent to play. You have to choose the variation where you pose more challenges to him and where it's not that straightforward for him what to do, where he has a choice and therefore a chance to make a mistake. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. The game proceeded to an extremely exciting and instructive Rook's endgame. I would like you to take a look at it so you can learn and improve your endgame technique. So here I have won a bunch of pawns there, and I decided I'm just winning. I'm taking here the pawn on c7, my opponent takes back, but now I just play the move rook to g5. I'm attacking this g7 pawn from two different angles, and my opponent has zero chances to defend it. So I thought, but he plays an absolutely incredible move, king to h8, and suddenly I realize that I don't really want to take this g7 pawn. Because if I do, let's say I play rook c takes g7, then he's going crazy now. He's sacrificing all of his rooks, rook takes f3, and if I take it, I am not winning anymore because he takes here. It's called a crazy rook. Notice that this king has absolutely no squares to go. So if he sacrifices all of his rooks, then it's just a stalemate. So he's just attacking my king over and over again, and I have zero ways to win this position. This is one very cool concept that you need to remember not to get into trouble, or maybe to save your game if you are playing from the black side here. Fortunately, I didn't fall for this trap. I slowly improved my position, but then I made an incredible blunder, just losing entire advantage. You're not gonna believe it. As you see here, the pawns are moving forward, everything seems to be great, but I'm making a huge blunder here. So my main problem was It was the first round of the tournament and it was really late. It was like 11 p.m. and the tournament was in a different city. So I knew that I still need to catch a train to get back home because the next round starts at 9 a.m. the next morning and, well, I need still to sleep somehow, and I thought if I'm missing my train, then everything is gonna be horrible. So I'm thinking here, that's of course a completely wrong mindset that I should not have during a tournament chess game, but that's how it happened. And I thought, how can I win the fastest? And I figured out this move h6. And it's so incredible because this position before the move h6 is like +7 for me, completely winning. But after the h6 move, it's 0-0-0. I don't have any advantage at all. That is how crazy the rook's endgame are. Basically, any move except for h6 is completely winning. But this one loses the entire advantage. Why? Well, I only calculated what happens if my opponent takes it. We basically just exchanged the pawns. Now I have rook to b7, then I win this h6 pawn and everything is great. I'm gonna easily win with those two connected passers. Instead, if black plays something like rook a7, which is a quiet move just defending that pawn, I'm in trouble. I mean, I cannot win it at all. My plan was to play something like rook b6 to double the rooks here, protecting that pawn, because I cannot take immediately. He's gonna take and I'm gonna lose my g3 pawn. But here I also don't win, because he has rook a4, and then I block it with the pawn. He has rook a3, I'm losing the key g3 pawn, and there is absolutely no way to win this position. Fortunately for me, I guess my opponent also thought that I'm gonna win here no matter what, so he actually didn't, like, he thought for a while here before making the move g6, which actually is not that bad. He's still not taken on h6 and he wants to take it with the king eventually, and here black can still fight for a draw. It's a very small advantage for white. I mean, this h6 move ruins absolutely everything. But the very next move, after f4, he makes a decisive mistake. He takes here with the king. Once again, rook a7 is the move to just control this 7th rank and not allow white to do anything. But he takes instead, and then after rook b to b6, that's winning once again, as I win that g6 pawn and win the game with two connected passers. Several moves later, when I managed to kick the king away and progress with my pawns, my opponent finally resigned because there is absolutely nothing stopping me from going forward with those pawns, and eventually I'm gonna promote it and win the game. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get the $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. So to make the best move in the respective chess position, you need to first find all of the promising alternatives, second analyze and compare it, and here you have to choose the most uncomfortable one for your opponent and the one where he has a lot of choices and it's complicated to make the right one. The question though is, how do you really go from the very beginning of the game till the end applying this philosophy? To answer this question, I have made this video where I play a real game and share my decision-making process with you so you can apply it to your games and crush your opponents.